I'm
gonna mute. I'll give him a call.
How is everyone?
Living the dream.
Good.
You?
Awesome. It's nice to kind of see everyone and get back to some sort of normalcy, or kind of, right?
I'm sorry, Samantha, we can barely hear you.
So it's nice to see everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at this great action shot of Tori.
I was just
Yeah, that's crazy.
it looks like a model or something.
Is that like his LA like headshot when he goes down to like audition?
I forgot that was on there. You're not supposed to talk about that.
You didn't forget, Tori. Stop it.
I can't even see it.
You've inspired me, Tori. I'm gonna get something set up for the next meeting.
Me too. I'm gonna be
Lighting's
gazing off.
awesome. So funny, Jeff. I was thinking the same thing.
Well, I'm reaching out to Tyler. It looks like we're live. So maybe it start again. So we have a new member, Samantha, Tyler Jackson, with Jackson Jewelers downtown. So he lives in West Salem Neighborhood Association. So he's new to the board.
Awesome.
He was with us. We're trying to get him reconnected.
So since we have a quorum here, I think we should just move forward with the nominations like we were doing.
Yeah.
Until we get Jackson or until we get Tyler back. So for clarity, there was a nomination for Jeff Miller to stay at the chair. There was a nomination for Mark May to remain at vice chair. And then I think we got cut off. So as far as the rules go, do we have to start over completely, or do we, what do we do here?
I think that to Mark's point, since this will be a separate recording, let's just do the action again. So sorry for the inconvenience. Let's start with the chair. So we'll start with the nomination for chair and vote, and then we'll do the vice chair and vote. That way we'll have it on the same record.
Okay.
We'll start there.
I nominate Jeff Miller for chair.
Okay.
Jeff Miller accepts. Are there any other nominations? No other nominations, so now we just do a quick vote. Boy, did I lose it again? Nope, there it is. So we're at the voting process. There was no other nominations. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Aye. Any opposed? Samantha, you gonna oppose? No? Just kidding, I'm kidding.
I like Mark. I don't know about you.
For vice chair, what are we talking for chair? You want to move into chair? I'm fine with that too. Well, Samantha, was that an
No, she
official?
was thinking that it was vice chair. We're still on chair.
Oh, okay, okay. So Samantha, for clarity, you're nominating Mark May for vice chair?
Yes.
I would second that. Any other nominations?
I accept.
Oh, yeah, you have to accept, I suppose. Any other nominations, any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
aye.
I
Any opposed? No. So congratulations, Mark.
Congratulations, Jeff.
Thank you. Looks like we can move forward then. Tyler's back. So since,
Hi, guys.
so since Tyler is back, I just would like to pause real quick and go back so Samantha can do a self-introduction for Tyler, and then Tyler can do a quick introduction himself.
Thanks, Jeff. That'd be good.
Well, hello. Good morning, Tyler. Me and Tyler kind of go back a little bit. I'm Samantha Ross. I manage the West Salem, Washington Federal Bank. Been over here for, oh gosh, I don't know, 7-8 years. So welcome.
Also the president, right? Is that what you call it for the West Salem business?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I am the president for West Salem Business Association. Thanks, Tori. I'll give out some autographs later in person.
Samantha's all things West Salem.
So Glad you're here, Tyler, for sure.
I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely.
I'm a West Salem resident now. It's been kind of fun to live on West Salem side for over 13 years and been in Salem my entire life. And we have a business in downtown Salem. Jackson Jewelers is our family store, and it's been there for 75 years and 76 this year. 76 just keeps on ticking by. I don't know if I really count this year. I just don't know what to do with it yet. But our business is still open, though. We are trying to do our best to be open during the pandemic, and
Nice.
figured out a way to be open on Fridays and Saturdays by appointment only. And it's really been a blessing to be able to be at home and work and do a lot of work from home, and then come in on those 2 days and then really punch them out real fast, and then go back home or to the golf course.
Nice.
To something else. But it's been really fun to be able to still have a business in this time, which a lot of people just don't get to have businesses right now. So I'm excited to see what we can do for West Salem too, and see where, because West Salem is such an integral part of so many different formulas in Salem right now, with housing growing out here, and
Yeah.
the T word and the B word that we won't bring up today, the BRIDG thing. I'm making those. It's just really exciting to be with you guys. And I used to be a part of the Downtown Advisory Board about 5 years ago or 6 years ago. Could have been longer. Time does fly. Currently, I'm on the board with the Salem Police Foundation.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's going well. And we had a great fundraiser in the fall to bring some new services to Salem, and that was great. And I'm part of some bicycle stuff too, which don't blame me for that. I apologize. It just pulls me in. Those bike people do, but they are going to be running stop signs like crazy now. Nobody's going to be there to arrest me.
Right. Well, Tyler, welcome to the group. We're
Thanks,
happy to have you. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Not typical. Usually we don't have these types of interruptions. But that said, I think we've got it worked out. Teresa's got everything locked down at this point.
I blame
think
Tori.
so.
I accept.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
He
I
just
needed a
wanted to
coffee
see his
refill
headshot
anyways.
again.
Yeah, Tori, John wants to see that headshot again, but while you're doing that, why don't we just move forward? Tori, go ahead. I think Brian was going to jump in as well, update some rules and quorum type stuff.
Yep. Yeah. So Brian's up next. So Brian is the assistant city attorney for the city of Salem. Given that it's the start of the fiscal year, it's just a nice reminder for people who have experienced it before, but since we have a new member as well, basically just going through ethics, public meetings, things like that. So turn it over to Brian.
Well, bear with me if I get my screen sharing wrong or anything along those lines. This is going to be a high level discussion. I think several of y'all have seen this before regarding public records, public meetings, and ethical considerations for public officials. I put together a short slideshow that we'll go through and give you a reminder of some of the things that you all are responsible for as board members. Let me see if I can get this share screen. No. There we go. Can we all see that?
Yes.
All right, public meetings, public records, and ethical considerations. Well, what is a public meeting? Well, the Oregon form of government requires an informed public of the deliberations, considerations, discussions, and actions of public officials in public meetings. What is the purpose of having a public meeting or having meetings open to the public? Well, governing bodies, which make decisions about public matters or public business, spending public funds, that these decisions are made in an open form or discussed in an open form so that members of the public can view exactly how these public officials are making their decisions. Historically, there was in the 70s and prior, there was, a feeling that the public was not, did not have the access to the decision-making and thoughts of the public officials. And, the creation of sunshine laws kind of really changed that. Make it accessible for everyone so that they can see this. In time of coronavirus, as we are currently in a Zoom meeting, things have changed, but the concept is the same. There's a public link. Members of the public can watch what's going on, can hear what's going on, and have a rounded understanding of how our public bodies are acting. Who is subject to the law? Well, public meeting laws apply to all meetings of governing bodies of a public body. The public body in this case, can be City Council or WESRAB or DAB. They're required to have a quorum. We're familiar with those general concepts. And they have to make decisions or deliberate toward a decision on the matter. The public body, as I stated, is city, county, subdivision, or other public entity. Governing body means two or more members of the public body, or you all. They have the authority to make decisions or recommendations to a public body on policy or administration. The governing body includes the city council, but also boards, commissions, such as DAB and this group. What is a meeting? When are meetings? What does that mean? A meeting is the convening of a governing body for which a quorum is required to make a decision or deliberate. Even if decisions are not made and there's no final decision or vote, the meeting can be what's considered a public meeting if there's deliberations towards ultimately a final decision or information gathering. If there's a discussion on a particular topic and it goes through several different meetings, and at the fourth or fifth meeting there's a final decision, the fact that the final decision is made at that last meeting doesn't render the previous meetings non-public meetings because deliberations were occurring. What is not a public meeting? Well, if we didn't have enough members of this board attend, we wouldn't have a public meeting, pursuant to the bylaws. Less than a quorum. If you all end up in the same, restaurant, but you're not engaged in any activities, that wouldn't be a public meeting. If this board wanted to go to view a construction site or a potential new park, an on-site inspection wouldn't necessarily be a public meeting unless the members began discussions or deliberations. Then it would be an improperly noticed meeting. But just viewing their particular area as a group won't necessarily render it as a public meeting. Executive sessions, I'll quickly go through this, but there are certain circumstances where various boards may have to meet without the public present. News media is allowed to attend and generally report on information, and there's limited reasons you can have executive sessions, real estate transactions, labor negotiations, and a few other items. A couple of the pitfalls for public meetings. We're in a teleconference call. I used this this slideshow from 2018, so many of y'all have seen this before. But the fact that we're doing on a Zoom meeting kind of makes these previous slides a little more telling, in that we didn't have Zoom meetings in 2018, or at least I have not participated in one, but all the rules are the same. If we were all on telephone, we don't need to have video conference. I believe John stated he was on his cell phone. There are, various electronic means that public bodies, governing bodies, can meet, and they can all be considered public meetings. Some of the things to consider, so you don't accidentally or unintentionally violate the public meeting laws. One of the more interesting cases that took place in Oregon a number of years ago was the Dundee v. Handy, in which a group of several of the Board of Commissioners violated the public meeting law through what would be a serial meeting. If one board member had one-on-one discussions and regarding a particular topic and then moved to a different office and had discussions and then moved to a third office, you'd have a serial public meeting. You know, they weren't all together, they weren't done at a time, but the decision-making worked its way through all the all the commissioners, and was a violation of the public meeting law because the public had no opportunity to participate. The interesting thing about being a public official is, violations of various public meetings and ethics laws are of a personal nature. An individual commissioner who was a former public lawyer and was familiar with the public meetings laws was personally found liable for $20,000, wasn't covered by the county insurance or anything along those lines, and the county had to pay a large sum as well. Lessons, well, sending emails, string emails, or reply all can be a dangerous thing. Ensure that if you're communicating with Tori, do so on a one-on-one, or reserve items to discuss solely in an open public meeting forum. Serial meetings, there's less than a quorum, you're deliberating, it was in private, there was no opportunity for the public to participate, and one of these individuals was aware of the laws and intentionally, as the courts found out, intentionally sought to break them. The follow-up case to this, Handy versus Lane County, was a follow-up decision where a former commission member who was found liable was attempting or seeking to sue the county. The Board of Commissioners, one of the board members hit a reply all and began discussions on how they should handle the claim against the city. It was an unintentional violation of the public meeting laws, but it was a violation nonetheless. The court, after review, determined that there was no intention and didn't require that any of the new board commission members to pay any money for damages. You can communicate regarding scheduling questions or availability calendar, but they're not substantive to the actions of the board. Now that we're all on our private computers or public computers, telephones, a couple of things to remember. These things, there's my kid fishing. These things are computers. They can also be used for public meetings. If you're sending emails to each other from your private emails, those things become public records, and I'll talk a little bit more about those. So remember that when you're engaging in your activities as a public official and using your personal items, be aware of the ramifications of that at some point those particular devices may be sought for discovery, and they may want to, a judge or others may want to look at these particular pieces of information. Oregon Public Records Law, kind of a segue from public meetings on our phones to using our particular computers, laptops, and other means of communication. Public records, everything we do that memorializes an action of the public body is a public record. Emails we send, tweets, instant messages, those are all public records. They relate to an activity, transaction, or function of the state. If you're communicating with another board member on unrelated business regarding lunch plans, that's certainly not a public record because it's not memorializing any action of the board. Public official ethics. What is a public official, and where do you find information and rules regarding public officials? Three main things to consider now that you're public officials, and congratulations. Three main subject areas that'll keep you out of trouble: conflicts of interest, gifts, and improper use of your office. Who do these ethics laws apply to? Well, public officials, relatives of public officials. For gifts, members of your household, even if they're not necessarily your spouse, could be your children or your parents. Business with which any of the above are associated. Who is a public official? Well, elected officials, the city councilors are public officials. Appointed officials, you all are appointed officials by the council. Employees and our agents. You're a public official even if you receive no compensation, financial compensation for the services you engage in. Many public officials own businesses or, are co-owners of businesses. What's a business mean? It's a private business entity, corporations, partnerships, franchises. It can also be self-employed, sole proprietorship. It doesn't include a 501c3 corporation or all C corporations. If the public official is only a member of the board and doesn't receive any remuneration for their services. Where are these ethical laws located? State ORS has an entire provision on what are ethical considerations, but so does the city. We have our Salem Revised Code, and we also have the city charter. Salem's is based on state law, but we're actually even more restrictive. That's something to keep, if you're looking to the state laws, also look into your SRCs in the chapter, because it's a little tighter set of rules here at the city. Specifically, wants to look for a conflict of interest, the appearance of a conflict of interest, special favor rules, and non-disclosure of private or non-public information. Well, how does, you hear conflict, what's a conflict mean? Well, there's a couple different types of conflicts of interest. You have an actual conflict of interest or a appearance of a conflict of interest. State law, ORS 244, any action or any decision or recommendation by a person acting in a capacity as a public official, the effect of which would be to the private pecuniary benefit or detriment of the person or person's relative, or any business in which the person. SRC is even stricter, any benefit or detriment. Potential conflict of interest. Not necessarily there, but it may look like that there's a possibility. State law could be the private pecuniary benefit or detriment. SRC again is even more strict or broader, depending how you look at it. Any benefit or detriment that creates a conflict, not only pecuniary benefit, but a detriment. So it may be detrimental to a competitor. It wouldn't be a direct financial impact, but that would also be a potential conflict of interest. Well, if you find yourself in a conflict of interest, a situation where you're on a board where the board's determining to purchase not this case, but recommending the purchase of a particular parcel of property, and it's owned by a board member or a family member, or a business owned by a particular board member. Well, if you have an actual conflict of interest, I own that particular piece of property, disclose, refrain, and remove yourself from the situation. You can't just remain silent. There are some rules if there's no one left to make that decision, but those are very, very, very rare. If you have a potential conflict of interest, you own a very small percentage of a company that owns something that's a little removed. The best bet is to disclose so that it's on the record. You may participate, but you must disclose prior to that. Our city code, depending on the appearance, depending on the particular conflict, we like to avoid the appearance of impropriety. If it doesn't look right, it's better to disclose rather than determine later that there was an actual conflict of interest. Appearance of impropriety. Public officials are bound to observe in their official acts the highest standard of morality and to discharge faithfully the duties of their office regardless of their personal consideration. Their conduct is both their official and in their official and their private affairs should be above reproach. fair and fulfillment of your duties. You can't contact counselors to obtain preferential treatment in connection with city employment. That doesn't apply to the city manager. No use of city-owned property for private use. I don't think the board, you all have vehicles. I don't think Tori's given you all vehicles, but if so, you can only use them in your official capacity and not for vacation. No public official shall grant any special privilege to any citizen beyond which every other citizen is available. So you can't engage in favors for a particular group or a particular individual. Everyone has to be treated on this at the same way on the same grounds. Disclosure of confidential information. Occasionally, pieces of information will come across your desk in your official capacity. If it's information that is not disclosable to the public, you have an obligation not to disclose it. Can't disclose it, you can't use it. What are the consequences for a violation if you hide the fact that you own a piece of property and the city's trying to buy it? Well, in the state, there's a civil penalty. There's forfeiture, as we saw. Well, not the forfeiture, the civil penalty in the Handy case. You could, forfeiture of various activities and sanction. In city, you can get removed from your office, and the reviewing authority or the council could act accordingly, which is a broad standard depending on the circumstances of the violation. Chapter 62 of our charter applies to both elected and appointed officials, requires disclosure of certain gifts, relationships, and campaign contributions, requires recusal if the presence of gift, relationship, or contribution creates appearance of impropriety in the mind of a reasonable person. You can think of all the different examples: lunch, tickets, ball games, and it's best to minimize those type of activities. Complicated exemption procedure. I'm not going to get into this, but if there's a rule of necessity, it happened in the Supreme Court a number of years ago on a PERS challenge. They're members of PERS. There's no other entity that could hear that particular action. So there are some rules that if it's necessary, even if there's a conflict, that board members or others would have to make a decision. Here comes the difficult part about the ethical considerations. Compliance with ethics laws is a personal responsibility. You have the responsibility to comply with both city and state ethics laws, even if the cities are more restrictive. When you're on a city board, those are the ones, in addition to the state ones, that you have to follow. What is the role of the city attorney's office regarding the ethics and others? Our client is a city, an agency. Regarding state ethics laws, we do not represent public officials in their personal or professional capacity. In fact, you can't even rely on legal advice. If you had an ethical question and you went to the city attorney and said, "Can I do this?" Even if they rendered a decision and said, "Yes, that looks great to me," it's of no value ultimately to protect you. We can point you where the rules are. We can tell you what, where to get further information, but you can't rely on advice. It has to be a personal decision. Where do you go to get advice if you have a particular question or you're not sure whether you've got a potential conflict of interest? If you go to the OGEC, Oregon Government Ethics Commission, they're available for all public officials. They can give you you can contact the commission and ask a question. They can give you informal advice, either email or phone, but it doesn't exempt the public official from liability. Even if they say, yes, you can do it, it's still, and ultimately a court determines that you couldn't, there's no get out of jail free card for that one. If you get a staff advisory opinion from one individual, it still doesn't exempt you from liability. You have to get an official commission opinion, which takes a very, very long time. But there's many of those that you can reference to try and find a similar circumstance. Where to go for ethics advice for city issues? We have a city hearings officer who is available to receive and initiate ethics complaints, hear and investigate those complaints, and render advisory opinions or interpretations regarding the activities. That can be run through my boss or the city attorney, Dan Atchison. Let me click that, I think I can stop my share. And thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brian. I did understand that you mentioned Twitter. I just want to make sure that to highlight TikTok for Tori. I know he's super into that program, and we probably need to stay away from that as well, Tori. Thank you. Any questions for Brian? No questions for Brian. Brian, thank you. I think a couple of us have probably seen that a couple of times, and or at least once. And it's always good to get a refresher. So thank you.
And you're welcome. I'm going to drop off, Tori.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
So no TikTok for Tori. So Tori, moving on. Status of applications.
Yep.
You kind of touched on it briefly, so we don't
I'm going
need
to
to
share my screen really quick, so I'll go over those. So as you probably saw on the agenda or in the meeting as it is right now, for Tyler, we're light a few. We typically have 11 members. We have 4 openings right now. When we have 3 applications that are pending. So one is, I'll go from top to bottom. So the first one, business or property owner in the West Salem urban renewal area. So right now we have Brittany Davidson Cruikshanks with Salem Electric. And she participates a lot in the community. She might be viewing this on YouTube. Again, the links for Zoom when they go out to board members. So she's been viewing meetings. So she would be the representative potentially. She'd be considered by, so as far as the process, as you all know, you submit applications, and then those applications actually, they don't come to our department, they go to the city manager's office, and then they go to the urban renewal agency or city council, and they ultimately appoint. So that's where they're pending right now. So the next one is the industrial business in the West Salem urban renewal area. So in this case, we have another applicant from Truett Brothers. His name is Michael Ryan. So that's under consideration as well. And then as far as resident in the West Salem Neighborhood Association, we have an applicant named Chris Wilhelm. You may know him from the Neighborhood Association in the last, not in the current group, but the last group that was involved in the neighborhood organization as far as chair. I think he was the secretary at the time. So he's been involved with Salem, resides there, and is being considered. So that leaves one opening. I've reached out to Dwayne Hilty. He used to be in that appointment. It's a little bit more challenging to find an actual resident in the urban renewal area. That's so I've reached out to him to help find somebody that could fit that position. If you guys, again, know anyone, right now, all these are up to consideration. So if you're in contact with other people that might be interested, have them submit their applications, and that'll give more options for consideration by the council. But that's one in particular that I have not seen an application to date. Any questions on applications? Okay.
Actually, Tori, do we have them contact you or contact the city or?
Yeah, you can send them to me, and then I can provide all the links to view information on the West Rev, on the urban renewal area, to apply. I can provide all that. So just to keep it simple, send them to me.
If you could give me the perimeter again, like it has to be below Cascade. It's basically just the housing down on the lower land.
Yeah, here I have that up as well. I can just briefly show you.
Thank you. I'm just on the outside of that. We're so close.
In the urban renewal area. So it's really Arthur. 9th Street is a good indication. So south, kind of southwest, I guess. It's a general area.
Tori, I'll reach out to you later.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
That's all I have on applications.
Perfect. Moving on to opportunity projects.
Hey, Jeff, can I say a couple more things that I forgot to mention before?
Yeah.
Couple boards that I've been a part of, and just for future stuff, if anything comes up. I was on the parking task force about 10 years ago, and that was a unique thing. So if anything comes up with the parking, and then on the most recently on the homeless task force. And so got to sit through a lot. Hopefully some others got to sit through it too, but just wondered if anything comes up in that realm, just don't hesitate to ask. So that's it. Thank you. Yeah.
Tori, are there any opportunity projects that are happening that you wanted to discuss?
Sure. I'm going to share this as well. So I'm bringing something up right now. As far as opportunity projects, we just went through the budget process that got adopted, and we have funds set aside for opportunity purchases, opportunity projects. And some of the topics that we've talked about in the past, what I'm sharing is a reference to the action plan. And as urban renewal projects are completed, action plans are done as a follow-up to see, how has the environment changed since funds were committed to a project that was completed or paid off. So with that action plan that was completed in 2015, we have a few things. So, we went through what this shows is just one of the main projects is the zoning land use changes that we just implemented. So we're ticking these things off, but revisit Western Gateway, and there's also Main Street areas, Festival Street, gateway signs, connections to rivers and parks. Those are probably some of the things that we can touch on. And Samantha raised this in the last meeting. It's, wanting to revisit some of these items. We're looking right now at Second Street. We have multiple phases to Second Street, and it's a lengthy topic, but just to reiterate to the group, what we're looking at right now is from Wallace to Girth. That is with Public Works, and we're in the public request for proposal process right now. So as soon as we have someone selected and we start that project, I'll inform the group on who's involved, and we'll have, there'll be moments in that design, development, and construction where we'll have an update from Public Works on the status of that project. So we'll keep you guys engaged on that project. It's a major one. So with that said, we have some of these other smaller potential projects. If we want to look at gateway signs, let's start with that one. I'm aware of signs elsewhere in the city where they've tried to do, unique signs, and that gets a little bit complicated because, there's kind of the basic, if you come in from Wallace Road, or if you come in from the north off, Portland Road area, you have these City of Salem signs. So to say that we want to go through a art project and designate like a West Salem specific, I think that might be an uphill battle. It's something that we can explore. But, for the most part, I think there's, at the council level, a desire to have continuity. So, West Salem, while it is unique, no one's questioning that. It is still part of the City of Salem. So if you get in this, it could be a point, if you get a special treatment for a West Salem specific sign that looks a certain way, it'll open up everyone in the community want to see specific signs in all their areas. So we can approach that one. That's, we can identify locations. In this case, where we're looking at Edgewater Street where it meets Wallace Road, and identifying, there's some things as far as like, identifying a piece of property, if it's not city control, acquiring it. So there'd be a cost to that. It's also, given that ODOT controls Wallace Road, we'd have to make sure that, that if it's in the right of way, or if it's near there, that they're not in objection. So that would be a review process for them as well. Something else to consider that downtown has done is they've had, for alleys and things like that, maybe unique districts. So what you could do is, maybe move away from a gateway or a City of Salem sign to identifying district. We've done wayfinding signage. We could probably do a similar program where you can either direct or identify districts in, so if you're in the Edgewater district, we could have signs for that. Or if you're in, various parts of West Salem, and that could be a whole, we could organize a group and talk about the various districts, make sure that, the group involves residents in those areas so they can help, identify, where those districts start and end and what are the, identifying characteristics. And then maybe frame signage system that helps people realize when they're entering or exiting those districts. So that's something that we could look at as well. What are your guys' thoughts? If we're starting with signage.
So just to clarify, going back to what we had talked about, having that welcome to West Salem, kind of like when you go into Kaiser. So you're thinking that would be an uphill battle? So
it would just look similar to, and I'm sorry, I'd have to probably show you guys what those look like. I know that there was an effort in the north, in the Portland Road area, to update their sign, and it's taken over a year because everyone's been kind of fighting over what that would look like. The city, of course, came out, and this is one of the things is a lot of the signs are controlled by Public Works, so they have an engineering feel. So when you enter, like from West Salem, for example, from Wallace, it's just kind of basic, and there's nothing fancy about it. So a lot of people in the community want something that has a little bit more flair. And as soon as you start down that path, and I'm not discouraging it, it's something we can look into. I'm just noting that in other areas, it has presented some complications. So it's something we can look at. We'll just have to set aside the money and the time to be able to do it.
Samantha, where's the idea for this sign to be placed? Where have you talked about?
So, well, I mean, we were just like barely I just brought it up. Thinking like when you come over the bridge, you come down and it kind of like, how it circles around.
Yes.
Okay, right there, there's like an area. And I just thought it would be so cool to have, kind of like the Kaiser, where the Kaiser one is. And it has the lights that go up, it shines on it at night. And it's got some, greenery and some landscape. That's kind of what I was thinking. So
it's interesting, when I was moving from South Salem into West Salem, it's really easy to think, okay, all the streets that are connected in South Salem into downtown, then out Center Street to Lancaster and out Portland Road, they all feel like they're all connected. But once you go over that bridge, you're like,
separate.
Where am I going? Where am I going? Am I going into a whole new city? Am I going into a whole new area? And I know there's a tiny little sign that says still Salem, still in Salem, but it feels like you're going into a new place. And so it would be interesting to have either a sign on Wallace, but if that's too difficult, maybe even just on Rosemont or something in that area. Tori, would it be easier to do it on Rosemont over doing it on Wallace?
Different location.
So I think when we talked about it before, I think there's, depends on location of Wallace. I know that there's the sign for Les Schwab. So maybe we could have a discussion on how that's controlled and maybe install something different that, I don't know. It's not as presentable if you had, let's say, like one of those signs, like a computer-based sign that has like maybe Les Schwab, and then it for a period of time, and then it transitions to West Salem. I don't think that's probably the best fit. It's not as architectural or presentable. If the interest of the board is to make a recommendation that makes you feel like you're in West Salem, I think you want it to be permanent. So can you see this map on my screen? I think this general area, I think that Edgewater, Wallace, maybe too soon, maybe 2nd Street, since we're doing work on 2nd Street, maybe we can identify a location as we're looking at that. I don't want to go too far off scope as far as what 2nd Street is intended for, but it's something that we can think about. It gives people enough time to get that sense as they're traveling to, West Salem, that they're in West Salem.
Can you zoom in something?
Sorry?
Can you zoom in? Yeah, thank you.
Oh, zoom in. Yep. Let's see.
Just jumping in here real quick. I'm a big fan of Samantha's idea of having a permanent welcome sign in that, ideally in that triangular space as you're coming down. It's just a concrete pad sitting there.
Like right here.
It's not, nothing occupies that. And it would make sense to me, and I'm in favor of it, even if it is an uphill battle, I'm happy to go to city council and lobby for it. To me, having something that is similar to the Kaiser, not that, but something that has a really neat design, welcome to West Salem. And then Tori, to your point, maybe having directional signs to the business district with an arrow pointing, or to the commercial district or Edgewater district, and there's kind of directional signs. And then likewise, coming off of Rosemont, maybe it's not a great big sign that is a welcome to West Salem, but maybe it is more of a directional, hey, we have Rosemont district is here, the business district is down there, with some signs. Would be something in addition to that would be,
That'd be cool.
that would be good, because those are the two main entry points to West Salem, unless you're going to go around the hill and go up Dokes Ferry. I think at that point, you know where you're going, you don't need it. But I would be the first to admit that I really like the idea that Sam's come up with, that we should pursue it, even if it is an uphill battle.
Okay.
From my perspective, I'm not saying that we take action on it or anything at this point, but it would be I think it'd be a neat thing for West Salem residents, and to be able to see something like that, prideful.
Okay. All right, I can look into that more. That sounds good. It helps to get some locations identified, so I'll go down that path and check it out.
John,
Does our
do you have any
review district-
opinions?
Cool.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I like the signage idea as well. Just thinking about what opposition there might be, and maybe Tori mentioned this too, but the time that I've been on the board and just coming to meetings, I do hear a lot of people worried that West Salem's trying to be its own city. So if we put a sign up saying we're in West Salem, are we telling someone who's coming in that this is a separate city, that West Salem is its own city, or is it a part of Salem? I think that is probably going to be, from a city council perspective, maybe that might be one of the biggest inhibitors, is they're thinking, are you trying to separate yourself out? Just because thinking up in Portland where I live, we don't have signage for East Portland, North Portland, things like that. So maybe that could be one of the roadblocks we'd have to plan to address when we, as we kind of approach doing something like that.
John, do you see district signs though? Like
yes, we do see district signs, but not in the way we've been kind of discussing it. They're kind of like more subdued on street signs and things like that.
like
I do
kind of
think
on top or something.
adding some type of signage, whatever that is, enhances the whole kind of experience of driving in West Salem, wherever you're going or however you enter that part of the city. I just think sometimes there might be some opposition in regards to, are you trying to separate yourself out?
So maybe a Salem sign, maybe with like a West Salem district underneath it or something. But Salem.
Yeah, there's probably a ton of cool different design elements that could be put together and would really kind of enhance that experience as you drive into West Salem.
Because I do agree with everybody. I feel like if it could be both at the same time, it probably would be easier to go through engineering and council. If it's definitely Salem, big Salem, little West Salem district, I don't know, just
yeah.
And then it's mobile, so we
I
can
think
flip
it's
it
a great
later.
idea. I don't want to throw, I'm not trying to like say let's not do it. I just want to, I've heard so many discussions about concerns from people about West Salem trying to separate itself out, that would this be construed in that manner, I guess, is what I just want to bring to the table.
John, I think that's a good point. I don't know that we get into the weeds about the design of it. I think that probably at this point we need to see what Tori can come back with, if it's even within the realm of possibility, even if it is a year down the road. And then we can start getting into the weeds a little bit about what that communication is and what that looks like. But I think that's a good point, John.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll take the information you guys provided, and then I'll check with Public Works, and I'll look into ODOT to see, what that area in particular, as you come in, that Jeff referenced, the triangle area, this is concrete. I agree, it would be obviously the concrete serves traffic directional purposes. I think it'd be great as well to enhance that a little bit more. So it's not just concrete, maybe get some turf in there or something like that. So let me, yeah, let me ask about that, and then I'll bring more information back to another meeting. So now that I have some suggestions from the group, I'll look into it a little bit more and bring it back.
And Tori, another spot just to consider is when you're coming down the hill from Capitol Manor and entering into West Salem on that end from Dallas or another city, just the same, similar, something similar, or like right in.
So I go over this way as
Yeah.
you're coming in off Edgewater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We just have to, you know, if we want to reuse urban renewal, and make sure we keep it in the yellow.
Yep. Keep it in the yellow.
Yep. Keep it in the yellow. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Jeff.
Yep.
He brought up the idea of ODOT. Do you know, is that ODOT redoing the whole street thing happening still?
The
It
paving.
is my understanding, yes.
When is it? October? I think she mentioned before, or
I think they're still finishing. It'll probably start. I don't remember. I don't want to give you misinformation. I want to say that they're still in the final prep stages. I want to say it starts maybe in the winter or next year. Let me check. I'm sorry. I don't want to give you the wrong information. Do you remember, Jeff? Offhand?
I don't recall. I thought it was next year, and when she said it seemed like her date was sooner than I expected.
Right,
Mark,
too.
you're really good at remembering those dates. Do you recall? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Just
I have it open. I can check. If you want to move to the next.
Tyler, are you talking about the crosswalks and bringing?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
yeah, crosswalks going to
Because on these days,
80, the 80, is it ADA or is it the 88 crosswalk?
Yeah, ADA crossing and paving. Yeah.
yeah.
And all the new crossing signs. And I was fortunate to be in on that ODOT meeting, sat in the back as a visitor.
Yeah.
Would love to know. Oh, go Tori.
Oh, we just had ODOT present to the group. So when we transition to updates on the Edgewater partnership and those guys, you know, we don't have anyone yet. Maybe it's just the West Salem Business Association. I'll toggle back and I'll check just to get those dates really quickly and bring it back. So you guys, I'll let the group know.
so Samantha, do you want to jump in here for any kind of updates on the business association? What's going on with the business association?
We had Chuck Bennett as a guest speaker last week, and I'm just really trying to remember what we talked about.
Sorry, Sam, to interrupt you. Are you guys doing your meeting over Zoom too, or did you have an in-person meeting or something? Or?
We're having our board meeting at Red Hawk Winery today at 3:00.
Okay.
So yeah.
But the meeting with Bennett, was that a virtual
Oh, I'm
meeting?
so sorry. That was Zoom.
Zoom, okay.
Yeah, and I guess I could. Gosh, I have notes somewhere. A couple different things. Talked about it was really great information. He talked about there's a couple of new businesses opening downtown restaurant wise, so that was interesting. He gave a little bit of an update on homeless. Nothing too definitive on that. Talked about the homeless camp in the West Salem Park and the recent criminal activity that's been going on.
Yes.
Lyle Morissette, Polk County Commissioner, mentioned us getting more police enforcement down in that area and asked for that. He said that he'd request it, but couldn't promise anything. Gosh, there was a lot of stuff that we talked about. Oh, police station grand opening, I believe in October or November. Tyler, do you know anything about that? The specific date? I think it was November of this year. So open house on that.
I'd always add 15%.
What's that?
Add 15% to the opening date, so probably January.
Okay, all right. And you talked about how great that was and what a benefit that's good. Anyway, so that was pretty much the gist.
Samantha, when's your guys' next luncheon?
That is going to be in August. We don't have one, so it will be September, the 4th Thursday of September. Give you the exact date here.
And you guys are continuing to have those in the midst of COVID?
You know, we are. We kind of held back for 2 months, and then we started getting back into it. We've had 2 since March with Chuck Bennett just last week. So the next one will be the 24th of September. And anyone that would like an invite that is not a member, let us know, and I can send you the link. Question, Tyler?
He's making a request.
Invite. Can I get an invite? Yes.
Okay.
Great. Anybody
Awesome.
attend the neighborhood association meetings lately? I have not. I've not done it for a while. No one participating in that.
I'll find out a little bit more on that today.
Okay.
Hopefully. Guys.
I know that there's been a lot of conversations with Dwayne Hilty, who's no longer on this board, about uniting West Salem Business Association, West Salem Neighborhood Association, West RAB, so that we're communicating. I know that there's been a lot of conversations that I've been involved with Lyle Mordorst, County Commissioner, Polk County Commissioner, trying to wrap all these things together to where we're all in our own little pods, but we're cross-pollinating a little bit. So we're continuing to kind of move West Salem in a direction as opposed to individuals that are out there recreating the wheel that someone else is already kind of down the road on. So that's not necessarily a neighborhood association update, but it is something that I've been involved in. And I think, Mark, you may have been involved in one of those meetings at one time as well. But other than that, I don't have any other neighborhood associations or West Salem things. And if no one else does, then we can maybe look to the last agenda item, which is setting up any kind of topics for next month. Go ahead,
Yes.
Tyler.
Who is, now that we've had 4 people come off, or 3, who's on that West Salem Neighborhood Association updates or committee? Or
We don't have anybody right now, so we're hopeful that one of the 3 people, hopefully one of the 3 people that come on are regular attendees of that. And if not, then we collectively can sit down and have a conversation of who wants to take on that project. Or I guess another thing, because to me, it's like nails on a chalkboard when I go to some of those meetings. No offense, but maybe it's hey, I'll take this month, someone else take the next month, and we kind of rotate around so it's not a full obligation to one member. I think that would be a smart move for our group, but I could do it.
This is, excuse me, before Zoom, they were in person and they were 7 to 9 o'clock at night. I mean, just like 2 hours of just people and kind of going with, not meaning to offend anyone, just complaining about things that really didn't pertain. So that's why I kind of pulled back and stopped going. It was just, it's hard, 2 hours on a Monday night.
Yeah. Tyler, you were going to say something?
Yeah, Tori had at the June 3rd meeting, there was a little talk about the toolbox money. I believe in that meeting, just what is there toolbox available for residents as well as businesses, or in the West RAB?
So depends on the residents. You can do a multifamily project with, we do have a grant similar to the downtown grant. It's a 80-20 match, so it's a 20% matching grant, and it's up to 300,000. So it's pretty well known, popular. Right now we have True Brothers. They're wrapping up their 2nd story office expansion. We have a new building off of 3rd Street, new office building going in there.
Yeah.
So we have a couple wrapping up, and then we have a couple more about to kick off. West Salem have been investing in heavy, like high-tech equipment. So yeah, we do have it. As far as like individual single-family residents, it doesn't apply to that. It doesn't apply to nonprofit. It's mostly for like mixed use, multifamily, manufacturing type of projects, building expansion.
What are you after? And do you need more of something right now in that area that you want to give more money towards than just an 80-20 or?
No, I think it's been, the nice thing about 80/20 is the money can go further. We haven't heard from anyone saying that, you know, a project failed because they couldn't get enough money. Our average amount, we can go up to 300,000. We've had over the time since it has been established in 2014, probably 3 projects have been, our average is around 140,000. So yeah, I think it's been great. I haven't heard anything, you know, as far as like process, you know, if you do hear from people, please let me know. We're always looking to improve it. We did have a period of time. So an applicant that came in, they'd have to wait 5 years to apply again. We pulled that. So now it's anyone that if you have the money to spend in West Salem and invest, you can do it repeatedly. So I think that'll help. So like West Salem Machinery, they've done equipment acquisitions. They've been streamlining their process and going high tech. They used to outsource a lot of that work, and they're doing it more internally now. So it's adding jobs and adding investment to their renewal area. So that's one of the benefits to that. So if you hear something that can be improved, let me know. One of them hasn't been like opening it up to a higher match, because that would diminish, you know, that would pull the resources away quicker. This way we can get more projects done. So, but if you hear that, let me know.
Okay.
So we have about 5 minutes. I want to be sensitive to everyone's time. Are there any September meeting topics that we want to just throw on the agenda for next month we want to talk about? I would say this real quick, Tori. I don't know how much time you can dedicate to looking into that sign with ODOT and that sort of thing, but it might be a good topic just to circle back around with until we have an answer. And then the last thing that I just wanted to bring up is when we look at the notes, the minutes from the previous month on that last page of the agenda, it talks about August meeting topics and it's presented, and then there's names that are addressed. Is there a way for us to capture exactly what it is that were those topics?
Sure.
Moving forward, so that we can, and I'm happy to do that if that's what it needs to be, because I think we lose track of some of these things.
Yep.
And it would be nice to just kind of modify that a little bit.
We're gonna look at that.
You know,
And really quickly before you adjourn, if you're done, Jeff, I just wanted to
please.
update you guys on the ODOT. So I was able to find that. It looks like the project goes out to bid. I don't know if it's already out to bid, but they'll open it in November, and construction phase will start in December and go through October 2021. So as far as timeline.
Shouldn't be much of a disruption at all in West Salem, I wouldn't imagine.
Keep meetings on Zoom, everything remote.
Yeah.
No travel.
Keep traffic low.
Keep traffic low.
All right. Well, with that, if there's nothing else, we can go ahead and adjourn a couple minutes early. It's great to see everybody. Again, Tyler, thank you for jumping on and being part of the group.
Thank you all.
Look forward to having you, and hopefully we'll have a couple more by the next meeting.
That was good. Good to see everybody.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
It's Teresa behind that mask. Have a good day, guys.
See ya.
See you, Terry. Leave.